second grade teacher had wanted to explore religions with her students, and she asked all the students that they would bring something that represented the way they expressed part of the way they expressed their religion, or practiced their religion. And the next day, the students had brought stuff in, and the first little girl stood up and talked about some rosary beads that she had brought. She was Catholic, and she explained how they were just part of the way they pray, that they helped them keep count of the prayers, and how that helped represent her Catholic belief. Another young boy, a Native American, who was Native American, stood up and had a dream catcher. And he explained how they would hang that over the bed, and that the dream catcher would catch the dreams and filter out the bad ones so they would only remember the good ones. And then a Jewish child stood up and held up a candle and explained how the candle was a symbol for them that helped them celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah. And the teacher shook her hand. And then in the back, a young boy stood up with a huge bag and pulled out food. And he said, "I'm Southern Baptist, and we do chicken casserole." We all celebrate our beliefs in a different way, don't we? We're all different. Even if you just looked at the Christian churches, we celebrate differently, right? We conduct services differently, right? It wouldn't take you long to just go to another church and see all that. We don't do that. What's that? Why do y'all do that? You know, if you went to a Catholic church and you've never been to a Catholic church, you probably wouldn't know when to kneel, stand. You know, I call it church aerobics, but you probably wouldn't know when you were supposed to do those things. But Catholics do, because they do them every Sunday, right? So but it's just part of what they do. It's part of their beliefs, and so it's not surprising that we have a diversity of beliefs, right? And even today, church is done way different, probably than when you were growing up, right? Would you agree with that? Church is definitely not the same. I mean, some churches, dress code is different, right? You can wear whatever. Some people come in pajamas, which I think is okay. I don't have a problem with that. I know some people have a problem with that. I don't care as long as your pajamas are appropriate. I don't care that you come in pajamas, because I don't think God cares, you know, as long as you're here to worship. But some people only come in suits. And that's okay too, because I think they use that as a sign of reverence and how they feel about their worship. There's a time of reverence. And that's okay too. I mean, I think God accepts both of those types of worship. I really do. Some people play traditional music. Some people play music so very loud music, and that, you know, and sometimes you think you're at a concert, and, you know, I don't know, you know, it's different for everybody. Different things work for everybody. We agree on that? Are any of them wrong? I don't know that any of them are really wrong, but which one's right? Which one? If I asked you which one's right, what would you say?
The only one that's right for me is which makes me feel comfortable in my worship, in my relationship with God.
Right, the one that makes you feel comfortable.
I said.
No, I'm making a point.
That's your question.
No, I know you are, and I'm making the point. Because that would be the answer for all of us, really. It's the one that, my way is the right way, right? I mean, that's a very good point. And that's the point I'm making is, we all feel that way, right? We all kind of feel like my way is the right way, the one that works for you. And in this particular instance, the one that works for you is correct. You need to find a place that you feel comfortable in worship, and that instance is true. But my point is that it all comes back to what we feel is right? But just a minute ago, we agreed the other ones aren't wrong. But what we feel is right. What's comfortable for you. They may not be your cup of tea, but it doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong, right?
Agreed.
Agree? Okay, very good. We're on the right track then. And the point I'm trying to make is that we just had an election here. That's no secret. I think everybody here knows, and we know the results. And there's a lot of things on the ballots in that election, correct? There was the down ballot, and then there was the presidential ballot, which is what most people are talking about this week, the outcome of that. And I want to point out that a lot of people voted for a lot of different reasons. no matter how you voted. People voted for the same reason we just talked about faith. They voted for what works best for them, right? Whether it's, I like that candidate, so I'm going to vote for them, or I dislike that candidate, so I'm going to vote for this one, right? Those are both legitimate reasons somebody votes. You might say, well, I don't like either candidate, so I'm going to vote for the party, because I've always voted for that party, so I'm just going to vote for that party. Okay, that's your rationale, that's fine too. Or you say, well, I like their platform better. I like the things that they say they're going to do better, so I'm going to vote for that. I don't like the person, but I'm going to vote for that. Supreme Court seats. I'm going to vote for Supreme Court seats, because I know those spots have to be filled, and I want somebody who's going to fill it with this party's views and not that party's views. Correct? A lot of different reasons. Or I'm going to vote because of a certain gender. I'm going to vote because one candidate's a female or one candidate's not a female. Whatever you voted for. They all work for you, right? Fair thing. I mean, it's your reason. It should work for you, right? I'm not making this. I have my reasons where I voted, and I'm not saying I'm right and everybody else is wrong, and but it works for you, right? But that's kind of the way life is. And Wednesday morning, half the country woke up happy, and at least half the country woke up in shock, and half the country woke up happy, and half the country woke up disillusioned. True? Is that? I mean, if I said anything that's not true yet, all right, stay with me. So we got a country that sees the world in two completely different ways. Fair statement? And I think the tone of this election, probably more than any election that I can remember, and maybe I just don't have a good memory, it's been very, very nasty. It's been divisive. It's been ugly. It's right. I mean, can anybody remember one any uglier than this? I mean, this has been pretty ugly. So I think it leaves a country waking up very divided. And the question that we have to answer as believers is, where do we go from here? Not how we got here, or what was said, or what was done. But where do we, because you can't change any of that. That's history. History is history. It's behind you. You learn from it, but you move forward. You don't move back in time. So where do we go from here? Fair question. Anybody got the answer? Go forward.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. That's right. That's actually right. We're going to go forward one day at a time, and we're going to see what it holds, right? But I think a good guide for us would be to look into the Bible. Because we're believers. So we have that to fall back on. Some people don't. But we're going to look at the Bible. You look at the Bible and you look and say, well, has this ever happened before? Has there ever been division before? Have people ever been against each other before? No, never, right? It never happens, right? People have never been divided before. Everybody's always agreed. We are the first generation to not agree with each other, right? No, of course not. It happens all throughout the Bible. And in today's scripture reading, I just read part of that letter that Paul wrote to the Roman church, a church he at that time had not visited yet. He's addressing what? A problem that they're having. A disagreement, a split, so to speak. Because they're all Christians, but they can't agree on everything. Right? You know any Christians like that? Right? All kinds of Christians can't agree on stuff even today. But back then, he's addressing something that what's happened is that in that time, that most of the church started out as what? Somebody said it. Jews. Right? Jews. Where did Jesus come from? What was Jesus? I mean, he was right. This is Jews, right? So his disciples were Jewish for the most part, right? So it started off with Judaism and it branched out into Christianity. Even though they believed Christ was the Savior, they started off with that culture, with that that base of Judaism, correct? And with that culture and with that base comes certain things, right? It comes that we eat certain things and we don't eat certain things. And we celebrate certain holidays and we don't celebrate certain things, right? There's a set of rules, right? Just as if you left the Catholic Church, if you were raised Catholic, and Catholics have certain beliefs and certain things, that if you went to, say, a Baptist church, and you say, well, this is my base, this is what I believe. You know, where do I go from here? You know, what do you mean I don't genuflect when I come into, you know, there's certain things. What do you mean you don't pray a rosary in the Baptist church? I mean, there are certain things that are different, correct? And so that's what Paul's addressing. That there's this infighting of the Gentiles who are saying, like, I don't want to be a Jew. I just want to be a Christian. And the Jewish people are saying, if you want to be a Christian, then you have to be a Jew. So how do you resolve that? And you would think Paul, being Jewish, would side with the Jews. But instead he doesn't, does he? Basically what he says is, y'all need to get along. I mean, that sums up, if you read that letter, chapter 14 and 15, he says, you folks need to learn to get along. He said, you need to respect each other. You need to respect each other's beliefs. And you need to leave the other person alone. In other words, Jewish people quit trying to convert all these Gentiles into Judaism. And all you Gentiles quit downing all the Jewish people for what they believe. He said, if your belief tells you don't eat meat, then don't eat meat. And you should be okay with that. And if your belief says you celebrate this day, and your belief says you don't, each do his own thing. Don't concentrate on what is different about you. Concentrate on what is alike about you. The things that you agree on. Right? The things that whether you're politically standing on the left or on the right, where do you come together in the middle? What are those things that we can work on from a political standpoint? Because since we're talking politics this week. Because basically that's what he's telling them. He said, what you need to concentrate on isn't whether you're Jewish or you're Gentile, but is that you all recognize that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, that God loved all of you. Let me say it again. God loved all of you, that he sent his Son to die for you. He didn't send it for the Gentiles. He didn't send it for the Jews. He sent it for all of you. And if God loves you that much to sacrifice his Son, then you as humanity are called to love one another that much. That sacrificial love. That love that says, you know what, if you want to go cry about the election, I'm okay, go cry. I'm okay with that. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I'm sorry that you're upset. Go cry. Doesn't say, man, you're a baby. This is what happens when you don't give a trophy. You know, it's not that. It's not about that. We need to be accepting of each other. I'm not saying you have to convert to somebody else's beliefs. What I'm saying is we need to be more accepting of the other side. Because, see, it begins with us. We don't need, whether you won or you lost, you don't need to be gloating out there. I won. My guy won. Man, boo, boo. You don't need any of that. And if your candidate lost and you're in despair and your heart's broken, I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. It's disappointing to lose, isn't it? We all have, you know what, every election, somebody loses. I mean, we don't have to go 4 years ago, and those of you who are happy today probably weren't happy 4 years ago.
Amen.
And 8 years ago, you weren't happy 8 years ago either, were you? Okay? So you haven't been happy for 8 years. So it's your turn to be happy. And somebody who's been happy for 8 years, it's your time to be miserable for a while. But the country is bigger than one person. The country is bigger than any one person. What we cannot do as a people, as Christians, is give in to hatred, to give in to bigotry, to give in to becoming ununderstanding of the other, those who are not like us. Because let me tell you what happens. Let me tell you what happens to that. Do you remember 8 years ago, some of you, maybe not all of you, some of you were unhappy about the election results. You didn't like the election results. For different reasons. Just like you voted for different reasons this time, for different reasons. But you couldn't say anything about it, could you? Because if you said something about it, you were labeled a racist. So you had to shut it all in, right? And it boiled, and it heated up, and it heated up, and it heated up. Tell me if I'm wrong here. It heated up. And in 4 years, it was starting to percolate. And you went out and voted again. And you lost again. And you couldn't say anything because if you did, you were a racist. So you put the lid back on the pot again. And you heat it up, and it heated up, and it heated up. Until last week, it came to a boil. Is that a fair scenario? Is that a fair picture?
Very much.
Very much so. You know, if you hadn't had that, if they hadn't put a lid on you, if they had not covered the pot and not allowed you to speak, then you would have let off some steam. But it would have taken a lot longer for you to come to a boil, wouldn't it? Those of you who've been in the kitchen, you know what I'm talking about. Right? Am I right? Tell me if I'm wrong. Somebody call me out on it. It would have taken you a lot longer to get upset. Now, with that in mind, I want you to think about something. Those who didn't vote for the party who won this year, if you marginalize those people, if you, every time they want to say something, you say, "You whiner, you're just a whiner, you're just whining all the time." If you do that to those people, instead of listening to what they had to say, you're doing the same thing that someone did to you 8 years ago. There's a golden rule that says what? Treat people like you want to be treated. If you want to be heard, then you need to listen.
Reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow in some cases. But in some, this is a time for us not to marginalize people. Not to say that what you're feeling doesn't count. Because what some of them are feeling, I'm going to be honest with you, is very real. I mean, some of it is media driven, but there is some fear out there that's very real for people. And it's real for a reason, because I can tell you, having worked in the school system this week, that we've already had incidences where people said, "Oh, you're Hispanic. They're going to ship you back to Mexico," to other children. Children shouldn't be telling children that. Children shouldn't be reflecting hate like that. But that comes from home. You see, so some of what they're feeling, and some of what those not only children, but some of what their adult parents are feeling, as far as being afraid, is very legitimate. Because even though everybody who voted for Mr. Trump is not a racist, there are some racists that voted for Mr. Trump. Agree? Agree. Just like everybody who would have voted for the other side, you can't label, you can't put people in a group and label them and say, "This is what everybody is who voted for this person. This is what everybody is who voted for this person." It doesn't work that way. As much as the media would like it to, it doesn't. It just doesn't.
Preacher, how do you deal as a Christian with someone who is destroying property and taking law into their own hands, which we're supposed to have a law-abiding country.
Laws are meant to be kept. Now, this isn't my sermon, but to answer your question, laws, I believe, are meant to be kept. And we have to have an order. We have to have, I think laws are meant to be enforced, regardless of what those laws are. If you don't agree with the laws, then vote for somebody in who will change the laws.
Hope that's what we did.
But hopefully that may be what you did. We'll see, because, you know, politicians make promises all the time. But what I'm saying is, but besides Charles, is anybody in here law enforcement? Or was law enforcement here? Okay. So we're not officers of the law. My job's not to arrest anybody. My job's not to, you know, I certainly don't condone that behavior in any way. I think that's destructive. That's the other side of the fabric that is destructive. But we have to understand something, folks, that we're all one fabric. This country is one fabric. You start taking shreds out of the fabric, and the cloth will fall apart. And there's going to be good on one side and bad on one side, and there's going to be good and bad on the other side. There always is. There always has been. But what the media wants you to do is concentrate on the extremes of both ways. That's what they show you, because that's good television, folks. That's good television. It gets you excited. It gets you excited, and it gets you fired up, and it gets your emotions going. And what I'm encouraging you to do is not to live a life of fear, but one of hope, and one of faith, and one of peace. There are always going to be the extremists who do that and are just taking advantage of situations. Not everybody who's demonstrating is tearing something up or burning something. Those are people who are looking to get something. I mean, they're in it for themselves, and they're looking to take advantage of a situation. But some people out there are legitimately, they want to be heard in a peaceful way, that they're scared. And whether you feel like they have a right to be scared or not, they're scared. And if that's the case, then the correct response to what I'm going to say here is, what do we do as Christians then, if they're scared?
Ask them to give Mr. Trump a chance.
Well, give them a chance, but we need to give each other a chance, don't we? We need to learn to get along as people, right? You know, Mr. Trump ain't going to come to my house. I've seen him, but I've seen him when my daughter was in the beauty pageants. I've seen him, but he don't know me. He ain't coming to my house. Neither would Hillary if she got elected. As a matter of fact, she don't know my name, and I dare say, and I don't mean this, I don't think either one of them really care about what happens to Kenny. Truth be known, they want to be elected. That's my opinion. Now, hopefully they're going to do some things that will help Kenny or help the country, actually is what I should be praying for. But they don't know me. So I don't take that's one man or one woman's power, and I don't take that as serious as a lot of folks do, because we have a Congress and a Supreme Court, and they're all meant to keep each other checks and balances. But what I want to say to you is, what do you do as Christians? How do you change the world? If Christ came, and he did come, didn't he? He did come and live among men. He came to do what?
Seek and save.
To seek and to save. To break down a barrier that was between God and humanity, right? And also between humanity itself. You notice, he didn't just hang out. He didn't go hang out with the Pharisees, the religious leaders, right? Who did he hang out with? Sinners, prostitutes. The bad people. So would he be hanging out with you? Yeah. Be careful you answer. Right? But he came to break down those walls, right? And that we're Christians. And that, as much as you'd like to say, well, you froze me out 8 years ago and I'm freezing you out today, I say no, don't do it. Do not do it. It's the wrong answer. We need to seek to find solutions together. We do. That's why nothing's been done in 8 years in Washington. Because each of us had to be right. There's been no compromise. We need to come to common sense solutions together. And we're not in D.C. and we don't have a whole lot to do with that, but we can come to common sense solutions right here in this county and the people that we see. You know, I talked last week about you need to listen twice as much as you talk. And you need to hear what people are saying. And if they're scared, then what's your response to that? Say, you know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're scared. You know, not everybody who voted for Mr. Trump is a racist. And you know, and if a racist came to you or was coming after you, I want you to know something. I'd be there with you. I'd have your back. I didn't vote for Mr. Trump so somebody could come and pick on you because of your race or because of your color or because of your gender. I didn't vote for Mr. Trump for those things. And let them know that. Say, I want what's best for this country, if that's what you voted for. I don't know who you voted for, but if that's who you voted for. Say, I want what's best for what I believe was best for this country. But that doesn't mean I want you attacked. Don't prove them right. Don't prove them right that that people who vote for Trump are just hate-filled people, because I don't believe that to be true at all. Show them that we're different. Show them that people who voted for Trump aren't what they say they are. That we are loving and that we are accepting and that we want this place to be a lawful place. Someone pointed out. We want the laws to be obeyed. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why you have laws. In every civilization you have laws. But they're not meant to be discriminatory towards anyone. Right? That we're to love each other. And sometimes we got to bury that hatchet. Sometimes we can't just say, well, you're liberal, so you're crazy. Or you're conservative, so you're nuts. Or you know, stop labeling people. Stop it. That's what the media wants you to do. Love people. That's what God wants you to do. Love people. That's what God wants you to do. So when you encounter people, and I don't think I'm up here preaching to you and not hearing the words myself, because I need to hear them as well. I'm not out there condemning you, but what I'm saying is what I've seen on social media, what I've seen in the news, and what I see going around, it disturbs me more so that people are set on being divided. And until somebody makes a move to bring the country together, until we try to unite, until we try to hear the other side, until we try to come to common sense solutions, until we let other people know who are afraid of it. Yeah, you're saying, you know, I'm not going to let something happen to you. You know, you live on my street. You live in my neighborhood. You live in my city. I'm not going to let somebody come in here and hurt you. Not if I can help it. Right? But when you share that kind of love, what does that reflect? Who does that sound like to you? Christ. We're Christians.
If Christ, do you think that he would condone what's going on with all of these riots and protests, the way our law is ignoring it? Our laws are made to be kept and to be honored. And yet we ignore all of these things that are going on and just don't pay attention to it. Let people break into homes or break into businesses and destroy innocent people's businesses. Do you think Christ could be happy with the way that we are letting our laws be taken advantage of?
No, I don't think so. I'm not saying that. That's not what I said. Now, if that's what you heard, I thought I made it very clear. The country has laws, and the laws are meant to be obeyed and are meant to be enforced. Very clear on that. If anybody's wondering what I'm saying. But there's also, that's the extreme. There are also people out there who are protesting for legitimate reasons of their own. Protesting, not destroying. And there's a difference.
I agree.
Between rioting and protesting. Between saying, I don't agree with something, and saying, let's tear something up. There's a difference. And I support the right of people to say, I don't agree with that, even though I may not agree with them. But I don't support anyone's right to tear something up, or to damage something, or to take someone, or to hurt someone for no other reason than the fact that you voted for Donald Trump. I think that's ridiculous, and I think the law should be enforced. If you're asking my personal opinion, you're asking me to be in Christ's mind? Guess what? I'm a human being. I don't have the mind of God. I don't have Christ's mind in me. If you're asking my opinion, I think Jesus obeyed the laws for the most part. I mean, that I could see. I can't, I'm not Christ. I can't tell you what's in his mind more than I can tell you what's in your mind. He never gave me that mind reading thing. Some of you might have that, I don't know. He never gave it to me, so I want to make that perfectly clear. But in the same...
I think the Bible tells us that Christ, when he approached sinners, that he said, go in peace and sin no more.
Right.
He always said that.
Right.
But the issue I have, and I think a lot of people seem like we're ignoring, sin no more does not ever come into the picture. Right. It's continue what I'm doing until I get what I want.
Right.
Okay? It's what I want. Not what might be right or what might be just. It's what I want.
That's because we live in a me-centered world
Yes.
instead of a God-centered world. We live in a world where everyone thinks that if it's
But
good...
Christ said sin no more.
Oh, I'm not disputing that. No. But I'm telling you why that we do that. I think why people do that is because the center of their universe is themselves instead of the center of their being Christ. See, when Christ is your center, then you seek to be like Christ. You seek to be pleasing to Christ. I don't think that would be going and tearing something up. I don't think that would be harming someone else in any way. So I think when you see people go and they act out these things, where they tear stuff up, where they're showing this anger, and I don't know where this anger is coming from, other than I think for the most part, a lot of times they just want to tear stuff up. And maybe it's just me. But you know what? But you know what you're supposed to do for those people? You need to pray for those people. Because they need some Jesus in their life, don't they? They need some Jesus in their life. You say, well, I don't want them to have Jesus. They're just mean people. Those are the people who need him the most. Those are the people who need him the most. Are the people who don't know him. So we need to pray for them. You need to, you know, that's the thing, is that we complain a lot about things going on in our country, but do we pray about those things? Is the thing I want to ask you. Do you pray for resolution? Do you pray, you know, there's some people I pray that I know that they don't know Christ. They're not the nicest people. Man, I pray for them. I pray for them. I pray that one day they will. Because you know what? If they do, then they will change. Because like you said, Christ says, go and sin no more. That we should, and he tells us the same thing. So when we go and sin, we're being true to who? We're being true to ourselves, and ourselves only. You know, if it works for me, then it's supposed to work, right? Right? Is that the way it works? So if I say, you know, Donnie, this is what works for me. I don't know how much is in the church's bank account. I need you to go ahead and write that amount to me and give it to me. That works for me. That don't work for you. It works for me. This will be good. Good. When can I get that check? but you see what I'm saying? When we live that kind of life, the only person that matters is us. We've fallen into a trap. That's right where Satan wants you to be. That's right where he wants you to be. Don't let the actions of other people dictate your actions. Let your actions that reflect Christ dictate theirs.
Amen.
Yeah, I'd say amen.
That's what we need to strive for. That's where we need to be. That's what we need to be striving for. We're not perfect people. I could ask you today how many of you are perfect. Nobody comes sit up front. I think we all agree. We all make mistakes, right? We're not perfect. We don't claim to be, and don't act like you are when you go out in public. Because you're not. And if you're not, and Christ has forgiven you, then He will forgive them as well. And you need to pray for that. If they're acting, when they're acting, there will always be bad elements of society. There always will be. I wish that wasn't true. I wish that wasn't true. But there will be. And there will be on both sides. There will be people who say hateful things to children. And there will be people who tear stuff up and harm people for expressing the right to vote. There will always be people like that. And we need to pray for both ends of that. That they'll come to know Christ and reflect a Christ life. None of this was in my sermon. Y'all want to start with the sermon? Maybe next week we can pick up. No, you know, when I'm up here and y'all think I'm sleeping and I'm praying, when you think I'm sleeping, I'm actually praying. But I always ask God to give me the words that He wants me to speak to you today. And they're not, sometimes they're not what I wrote. Pam will tell you that. She reads my sermon every week. She's like, well, you went, woo, that was my. And though what I've said here today doesn't have the stories that I put in there, it does reflect what I feel is the environment in which we live in today. Let me say that. There's a divisive environment. And if we look to Paul, Paul says you need to get along, but you need to be respectful of others. And I think there is a lesson there for us. I think there is a lesson there for us. That we need to strive to get along with people. You will not be able to get along with everybody. That's insanity if you think that. Okay? It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. But you can try. You can try. You can be the best person you can be. That you can be. And hope that they'll be the best person they can be one day. Right? He ends with a note, that last verse, and I'm going to end with that too. Because it's a thought I want you to take with you today. And I know you're tired of hearing Kenny talk. But in verse 13 it says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in Him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." And all God's people said, Amen.